Chief Tumun's personal narrative of the Battle of the Little Bighorn offers a precious window into the occurrences that determine the destiny of the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples. An important Cheyenne war chief, Tumun was central to the conflict and observed directly the courage and loss of his community. Within this exceptional account, he provides his own viewpoint on the period before Custer's final defeat, the intense combat, and its consequences. With impressive clarity and understanding, Tumun describes the victories and hardships of his people, questioning our preconceptions and illuminating a decisive chapter in Native American heritage. So, settle in, unwind, and join me on this captivating exploration. While viewing this footage, please click the like button and subscribe to our channel to aid this collective effort. During the spring of 1876, my Cheyenne people and I had made camp beside the Powder River, close to present-day Fort McKinney with 50 lodges. At dawn one day, troops under Colonel McKenzie, called Three Fingers, attacked our village unexpectedly. We fled in disarray, abandoning our ponies. The soldiers seized every one of our horses. However, after nightfall, concealed by the dark, we crept close and reclaimed our horses before departing. We journeyed a great distance and finally located a major Sioux village at Charcoal Butte. We united with the Sioux camp and appreciated the abundant grass, wildlife, and fresh water. Crazy Horse, the leader of the village, greeted me with kindness. "I am happy you have come," he told me. "We are preparing to battle the white men once more." The village was already crowded with injured men, women, and children. I replied, "I am prepared to fight beside you. I have fought previously, and the enemy has taken my family and my horses." Near May, when the grass was tall and our horses were robust, we gathered our belongings and traveled toward the Tongue River's mouth. Sitting Bull, Crazy Horse, and our combined group moved up the Rosebud, where we engaged General Crook in a severe fight and were victorious. Many soldiers were killed, yet not many Indians died. The clash was violent, with thick smoke and dust covering the air. Later, we crossed the divide and established a camp within the Little Horn Valley. We thought we had at last escaped the white man's grasp and could exist peacefully. But several days later, a Sioux messenger came to our camp north of Sitting Bull's and announced, "Prepare for a major ceremony. Cook, prepare meals, and get ready for a great dance." The Cheyennes occupied themselves cooking, preparing tobacco, and completing arrangements. We organized a dance to last the entire day, relishing our liberty from the white men. I traveled to water my horses at the stream, bathed them in the cold water, and afterward enjoyed a cool swim myself. While walking back to the village, I gazed up the Little Horn toward Sitting Bull's encampment and observed a great plume of dust ascending, similar to a whirlwind. Abruptly, Sioux riders galloped into camp, shouting, "Soldiers are approaching! Very many white soldiers!" I rushed into my lodge, instructing my brother-in-law, "Quickly, prepare the horses. The white men are coming." Outside, I detected a distant battle cry, "Hey, hey, hey, hey," and the rapid sound of gunfire growing nearer. I could not spot any warriors, only our people hurrying to saddle their horses. After securing my horse, a Sioux fighter returned, cautioning, "Many soldiers are approaching." He then instructed the women, "Stand back. We are preparing for a difficult fight." I stated, "I am prepared. I will battle alongside you." Mounting my horse, I rode through the camp, calling out to everyone in haste, "I am Tumun. You are a leader. Do not flee. Hold your position and fight. We must confront the white soldiers. I will remain, even if it costs my life." I rode swiftly toward Sitting Bull's camp, where I observed the white soldiers in combat, Reno's troops. The plain was filled with Indians pushing the soldiers backward. a chaotic scene of Sioux, soldiers, and horses, all firing their weapons. The air was dense with smoke and dust. I witnessed the soldiers fall back and descend into the riverbed like fleeing buffalo. They found no time to locate a ford, and the Sioux pursued them up the slope, where they encountered more soldiers with wagons. Then runners arrived, reporting that more soldiers endangered the women, causing the Sioux to wheel back. Chief Gall fought with courage, and Crazy Horse was present there also. Later, I went back to my own camp and prevented the women from taking down the lodges. As I remained mounted on my horse, I spotted flags approaching over the eastern hill. They formed 3 bodies, squadrons with gaps separating them. Then a bugle call rang out, and they dismounted while some soldiers led the horses back over the hill. The Sioux charged up the ridge from all sides, riding hard, the Cheyennes taking the position on the left. The shooting began, swift and sustained, pop, 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 extremely rapid. Some soldiers were kneeling, others standing, their officers leading from the front. The smoke was dense like a massive cloud, and wherever the Sioux charged, dust swirled up like smoke. We encircled them completely, advancing like water around a rock. We fired, galloped quickly, then fired once more. Soldiers dropped, horses fell upon them, and soldiers in formation collapsed. But one man rode continuously along the line, shouting constantly. He rode a sorrel horse with a white face and white forelegs. I do not know his identity, but he was a courageous man. The warriors continued to circle relentlessly, and the soldiers succeeded in killing only a small number. Numerous soldiers fell. In the end, all of the horses were slain, except for 5. From time to time, a man would break from the group and sprint toward the river, only to fall shortly after. Eventually, roughly 100 men and 5 mounted soldiers remained on the hilltop, all clustered together. Throughout the entire fight, the bugler continued sounding his calls, and he showed great courage. Then a chief was slain. I was told it was Long-Hair Custer, though I cannot be certain. The 5 horsemen and a band of about 40 men began advancing toward the river, guided by the man on the sorrel horse who shouted encouragement constantly. He wore a buckskin coat, had long black hair and a mustache, and fought valiantly with a large knife. His men were coated in white dust, obscuring their formation. One man by himself ran far down toward the river, then turned back over the hill. I believed he might escape, but a Sioux fighter shot and struck him in the head. He was the final man standing, and he had braids upon his arms. All the soldiers were dead, and their possessions were taken from their bodies. Afterward, it was hard to distinguish the officers. The corpses remained where they had fallen, a solemn testament to the battle's outcome. We did not hold a dance that evening, for a heavy sorrow filled our hearts. The following day, 4 Sioux chiefs, 2 Cheyennes, and I, Tumun, traveled to the battleground to tally the dead. One man carried a bundle of sticks. As we reached each deceased body, we took one stick and handed it to another man, counting the fallen in this manner. We tallied 388 bodies altogether. Among these were 39 Sioux and 7 Cheyennes slain, and approximately 100 wounded. Some white soldiers were cut with knives to ensure they were dead, and the war women mutilated some corpses. Most were left where they had lain. We found the man with the large mustache lying partway down the hill toward the river. Custer fell higher up on the ridge. The Indians did not remove his buckskin coat. The Sioux said, "That is an important chief. That is Long-Hair." I could not say for sure, as I had never seen him prior. The man on the horse with the white face was the most courageous of them all. That day, as the sun descended, our young men charged up the Little Horn, riding fiercely. We observed many white soldiers arriving on a large boat with smoke pouring upward. I assembled my people, and we promptly moved up the Little Horn into Rotten Grass Valley. We remained there for 3 days, then rode back quickly along our previous trail to the east. Sitting Bull returned to the Rosebud and journeyed down the Yellowstone, traveling north. I did not see him again